Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Libra, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October. I hope you are well and happy birthday to any of you October Libras out there. Yeah. Yes. I'm using the Llewellyn Tarot for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is link number 1 in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, which is over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people. So if that sounds like it's your bag, you know what to do. Right, Libra. Let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Libra, please? There's the first one. I'll flip you around so you can see. We have the 9 of Swords in reverse. Wonderful. Current energy, please. Thank you. We have the Page of Wands. Straighten these up in a sec. That's coming towards... there we go. Libra. We have the Tower. Well, this really shouldn't be coming as a surprise to any Libras because we do have a solar eclipse occurring this month. Now, I must see if I get my dates right. I think it's the 14th of October. I know that there are 2 eclipses happening this month. One is a lunar eclipse in Taurus. The other is a solar eclipse in Libra, obviously. And they are the 14th and the 28th respectively. But dang if I can remember which way around they are. I think the solar eclipse comes first, but don't hold me to it. It's not really much of a surprise that we should be seeing the Tower coming up when you have a solar eclipse happening in your sign. Yes, we have the 3 of Wands at the bottom of the deck though. So whilst there may be something about this that appears to be crisis-like, I think it would do everyone well to remember that the Tower is simply a change of direction, and so is the solar eclipse. You know, it's eclipsing something out of your life to help you change direction, to allow you to bring things in, actually. And, you know, until we get some more cards down on the table, what's not entirely apparent, and I imagine it will become apparent very shortly, is whether or not this is a Tower that you indeed yourself are initiating. So let's get some clarifiers out and see what's going on. Tell me about this 9 of Swords in reverse, please, for Libra. Thank you. We have the 2 of Cups. And we have the 8 of Swords in reverse. Wonderful. Tell me about the Page of Wands, please. Oh, goodness. Okay. We have the Judgment card and we have the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. And what about the Tower, please? Page of Pentacles. The King of Cups. Interesting. I did feel like the King of Cups was going to show up. And we've got triple, actually, Scorpio energy appearing on the table here. Transformative indeed. So let's put these straight, somewhere where you can see them. Camera's ever so slightly wonky, as it seems to do every single time I turn up here. Doesn't matter if I don't touch it at all, it still gets wonky. And we've got the 8 of Cups at the bottom of the deck here. Now, between the 8 of Cups and the 3 of Wands, we can see clearly movement for you. We've got a movement away from something and a turning towards the horizon and what may be held there for you. But before you get there, it seems to me like you need to alter your course ever so slightly. I mean, I'm staring at this Ace of Pentacles in reverse because it feels like there's almost like a wrong turn that you've taken somewhere, or the potential for a wrong turn, and it's like the thing that you were getting ready to invest in isn't quite right for you. And this Tower moment gives you an opportunity to go in a different direction. Let's start at the beginning, because otherwise I'm going to be hopping all over the place. And interestingly enough, it's kind of what I want to do, is just hop all over the place. It feels a little bit like that's your energy this month, Libra. Whereas you tend to prefer to remain kind of balanced. I think this month might be anything but not in a negative way. Again, the Tower is a really, really positive archetype because it is a broad broom that is sweeping through and aligning you to where you need to go. And in fact, the solar eclipses align you with where you're meant to be going. But let's start over here. So we've got this Nine of Swords in reverse, and a very welcome sign that is too, because the Nine of Swords, when it's in the upright, can speak to all sorts of things. It can speak to depression, it can speak to anxiety, insomnia. Ultimately for me, it's a card of having lost perspective in some sort of way. If you've been watching the channel for any length of time, you'll understand why I refer it to that way. For me, the nines represent how you manage whatever suit it is that they represent. So in the case of the Nine of Swords, it would be whether you manage your mind or your mind manages you. And the horizontal placements of the swords you see here, rather than up or down, which is how you see them in the rest of the tarot, means that there's a neutrality to these swords, and it's all about the perception. So here, when it shows up in the upright, what we have is someone whose perception is kind of off in some sort of way. It can suggest that the things that you've been worrying about don't really have much of a basis in reality, and then we go back to this idea of it being perspective that is the issue. Excuse me. But all of the negative connotations of this card tend to slide away when it turns up in the reverse like this, because it does speak very clearly, and additionally, when we've got the Eight of Swords appearing in reverse here too, it speaks to the fact that you are managing your mind. It's not happening the other way around, right? So Nine of Swords can also talk about fear and all those sorts of things, right? You can talk about mental illness and all sorts of things. I don't think you need to worry about that, Libra, at the moment. But where there was fear, where there was anxiety, where there was perhaps a loss of perspective, it seems to have been regained recently. I don't know how you found the Venus retrograde, and in fact, we had 7 planets in retrograde at one point there. I don't know about you, but I felt like I was trying to walk in quicksand. It was like every time I moved, I became just a little bit more stuck. Certainly in the mind. But clarity is returning, and perhaps that's had something to do with Mercury going direct specifically, as the swords are a very mercurial suit. Where things have been foggy and unclear, clarity has returned. The Eight of Swords speaks about how we get trapped by our own mind, right? I actually really welcome this card when I see it, because far from being stuck in an intractable situation, which is often how we can feel when the Eight of Swords turns up, the Eight of Swords actually tells us that it's something about the way we've been thinking about it that is the issue. We haven't felt like we had an option because we haven't looked at it properly, and maybe there are things that we've needed to compromise on that we didn't realise were compromisable, or we didn't want to compromise, you know. Those two cards showing up in the reverse are actually incredibly welcome, because just as this represents regaining clarity, so the Eight of Swords speaks about breaking out of a particular pattern of thinking that's been keeping us very stuck. And it's here with the Two of Cups. Now, this could refer to a specific relationship that you have been dealing with, or it can speak to the way that you show up in relationships generally. So it could be somewhat of a eureka moment. All of my relationships have this particular characterization, and it's taken me ages to work out why, but now I see it, and it's because I go into every situation being the peacemaker. I'm just trying to keep everybody happy, and that's why things end up going the way that they go. Or maybe I've noticed that I have people-pleasing tendencies, and so the kind of people that I attract into my life are the ones who are looking for someone who is going to people-please at them. That's possible. Like I said, it could also be a specific relationship if it has been troublesome in some ways. It's kind of getting to the root of the matter as to why that might be the case. Now, let's just pull another card for this Two of Cups, because I'd be interested to see which way it falls. It could be both. where one relationship becomes the archetype for all relationships that you've had. So we have the Four of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Now, that's a foundational card. For all cards numbered 4 are foundational in some sort of way. And this one specifically relates to home. Now, whether you have overhauled, both of these cards actually speak to relationships in various ways. Whether you are overhauling or in the process of overhauling a relationship, whether it's now that you see a relationship needs overhauling, there's some sort of active construction of a foundation here. So you might have made up with someone that you fell out with, or you might be looking to move away from someone who has formed part of your foundation for a long time. Whichever way it plays out, it's going to be different for each of you. But this seems to be the underlying theme. Wherever the Four of Wands shows up, there are notions of home, and that's more the emotional presentation of home rather than the physical one. So, you know, who are the people that you would call if you had some really good news? Who would you share that with? Who would you share your bad news with? Or, as I said, is it relationships generally? Is it the way that you show up in relationships? All of this has had a big overhaul, and I think that this is a really, really important state to be in, ready for this tower that's coming in at some point later in the month of October. Because, like I said, these two cards here, they do speak about movement, and this is a distinct movement away from something. Now, whether it's away from a relationship or away from a particular type of behaviour that you exhibit in relationships, you'll have to take it as it resonates to you. But we move into your current energy, and we have the Page of Wands, and it feels like there's an energy starting to build now for you. You know, the Page of Wands is a card of initiation. It's a card of starting things afresh, right? We've already got this kind of foundation that's going on here. The Pages, for me, the way that they differentiate from the Aces is that the Aces are something so new, so novel, that you have not experienced them before. The Pages, conversely, take something that you already have and they take it in a different direction. They reshape, they mould, right? And now we've got lots of cards on the table that are talking about a change of direction in some sort of way. So it can speak to a return of optimism and hope, and maybe even just a little touch of excitement about what the future might bring. But you could even see it in terms of, if this is a way that you've been showing up in relationships, then this could be the enthusiasm to start conducting all of your relationships differently. You could see how that would be a thing. But underneath here, we have the Judgment card and we have the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. Now, the Judgment card speaks to big life-changing decisions that you need to make. It can speak to the exercise of your judgment, full stop, which is a very important thing for Libra, right? Because it's bringing in those shades of discernment that we see with the Queen of Swords. And there's the combined energy of the Queen of Swords, which is your card, and the King of Swords, which is Aquarius. Working together, they do formulate a judgment. It's the King's job to come to a decision about something, but it is the Queen's job to provide all of the information that helps him come to the decision. So it could be a question of your discernment, your judgment making processes, all that sort of stuff. But the other thing that the Judgment card speaks to is a resurrection of circumstances. And we'll see it here. We've literally got these bodies in coffins being resurrected. In so much as it can speak to a situation that you recognise that's happened in the past before, that comes up again for a second go over, and we have the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. It's like everything is being resurrected for your judgment. Almost like you can see things with clear eyes, and the question is, what are you going to continue to invest in, and what are you not? I actually like the interplay of the Page of Wands with the Ace of Pentacles in reverse here, because the Page of Wands is a willingness to get something done. So it's not like we've got you snapping back into a kind of traumatized frame of mind where you're like, oh, I'm not going to invest in anything. like, fuck, hands off everything. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to do anything. You know, something that would have much more of a shade of the Nine of Swords in the upright about it. Instead, it's like, no, I feel motivated to do things. And some of that doing things is withdrawing my energy from something that I've been putting it into for quite a long time. You know, it's the interplay between the two cards is suggesting discernment. Because the Ace of Pentacles in reverse can sometimes be about delays and things like that, but I do think it's about, for you here, it's a withdrawal of a desire to invest in something anymore. And it's because you see it clearly for what it is. You know, whether it's a relationship that just happens to be taking on a pattern that you recognize, or whether it is you who has taken on a pattern that you clearly see for the first time. I remember a few years ago when the scales started to fall from my eyes properly about the nature of the relationship that I'd had with my ex-husband. And I saw him clearly, and I saw, more importantly, I saw me clearly. And I remember it just sort of hitting me like a bit of a train that this was always going to go this way. Like, it was always going to combust, it was always going to blow up. Because I would give until I had nothing left to give, and he would take until there was nothing left to take. And at that point, we were essentially useless to each other in terms of what we'd been looking for from each other when we got together, you know, or certainly the way that our particular characteristics had played out. And it really surprised me. There were lots of things about that situation that surprised me, but tell me about the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. Eight of Cups again. I mean, well, enough said. We've got this same card as this one here, which talks about emotionally walking away from something. And, you know, there can be a temporal distortion between the act of physically walking away from something and the act of emotionally walking away from something. That example that I just gave of the revelation that I had, I was probably like 2-3 years out of the marriage by the time I came to that conclusion, when I saw finally my codependent behaviour in his other behaviour. These things don't exist in a bubble. They need somebody else to be, you know, fulfilling their part of what is essentially a whole, particularly when we talk about codependence. You need... Codependency has two sides, and the one that we see people talking about most often on the internet, on YouTube and all this kind of thing is people who fall into codependent relationships because they have taken up with someone who has, you know, at the very least kind of narcissistic traits, right? But I feel quite often what we skim over is the fact that we put ourselves there and we stayed there. When all the signs were that this was not a healthy relationship, we stayed there anyway. Now, like I said, I walked away from that relationship, but it was 2 or 3 years later before this happened, or began to happen, at least. And sometimes when we're dealing with things that have been, you know, repeating forever, there can be decades between us walking away from that situation and then getting finally to the Eight of Cups. And what's really beautiful about the Eight of Cups is there is an implication within the card that we recognize that situations no longer serve us emotionally, and we can put them down to go looking for our ninth cup, the one that is actually ours. So whatever it is that you're turning away from, refusing to invest in anymore, I think I'm just refusing to put any more of your energy into. It's done with the understanding that this is the right thing to do for you. I said that high level of discernment that you have, Libra, is switching into high gear now. And this is quite interesting because the Tower then, as it appears for you in October, does feel like a really quite spectacular change of direction. Like I said, you've got 2 pages there which are almost in stabilizing and enforcing what you consider to be important and the energy that you have to put into something. Right? We're not looking to initiate something new, and we're certainly not looking to continue investing in something that is, we have discerned, no good for us. And there might be some fallout from that. But I think that's kind of by the by, it's not really that important. The Tower sees a very sudden, very shocking change of direction. Now, it's one that leads to an emotional maturation for you, right? Realizing that actually where the value is where your emotions are properly reciprocated. 3 of Wands can be a change of behaviours as much as anything else. So in terms of what it is that you do, I mean, maybe you've been flogging away at a relationship that has been close to you, whether it's a family member or a significant other, or even a friendship. You've been slogging away at this for the longest time, and you just simply have not got anything back from it. Conversely, there are other relationships that just don't seem to be quite as hard. And these are the ones that have value to you. And by being able to extricate yourself from what has been difficult, a relationship that potentially could only really perpetuate when the Ace of Swords was in the upright for you, there seems to be a willingness to pull yourself away from it in some way. Now, let's talk about this Tower. Thank you. So we have the 5 of Wands, and we have the 6 of Swords, and the 6 of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. Now, the 5 of Wands is a card of conflict, and well, the really obvious thing to state about this is that there is possibly some sort of blow up that's happening this month for you. It feels like perhaps a triggering event that's coming by way of conflict that you've fallen into with a person. It could be a Scorpio, to be honest. Let's face it, with all this Scorpio energy on the table, that's possible, but the signs aren't really important. There's something here that is showing you where you've been pulled in too many directions at once. Now, it is absurd how frequently the 8 of Cups and the 6 of Swords arrive together in a reading, as they have done here. They have similar meanings in so much as they both talk about moving away from something and leaving something behind. But with the 8 of Cups, obviously, the emphasis is very much on the emotional and the refusal to emotionally invest any further. With the 6 of Swords, it's more like your brain catching up. It's more of this discerning energy. Now, the energy of the number 6 is actually about pulling things together. It's about togetherness. Where the 5 is about strife and pulling things apart. But if we think about the broader themes that seem to be playing out here in this reading, which is you're kind of pulling away from people who are unhealthy and no good for you, people who perhaps represent some sort of trauma bond for you, is possible, and pulling together toward those people where the relationships are not quite so stressful, they're not quite so filled with conflict. It's like understanding the value of what they are, as well as understanding the value of yourself. I think for most of you that there is some sort of fairly abrupt falling out, let's put it that way, with people. And we've got that 6 of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck there, but we've got the 5 of Swords underneath it. So we've got 6s, which for me do talk about moving away from whatever the 5 represents, which is chaos and pandemonium. I think Aquarian Insight calls these the agents of chaos, the cards numbered 5. And exactly it. If the 4s are representative of foundation, then the 5s are what blow that up. The 6 is about moving away to a safe distance from that. So we've got 5s and 6s here. In both instances, interestingly enough, we have the 6 first and then the 5, which is intriguing. But it's this that I'm focusing on, right? It's the constant smoothing over that you have always done. That constant need for balance. Now, a couple of months ago, Libra, we talked about you focusing on the fulcrum point of your seesaw, if you will, and only really I need something. I'm going to get a pen here, right? I use this exact example. You got a seesaw, right, and you've got your I don't think this, there we go, right, there's the balance point for that pen. Now this is actually demonstrating it beautifully, because the balance point for the pen is not halfway down the pen. But I think what a lot of you were beginning to realise was that your focus had been on this fulcrum bit in the middle here, and it's very easy to think that the whole thing is balanced when you are only focusing on this, keeping your gaze very small, because you don't want to rock the boat, right? Just emotionally, that seems to be a good place to focus on. But when you've got the ability to draw back and see things as they actually are, you can see that the seesaw is not balanced. It's not even. I think in the video that I'm talking about, I think that I put the pen kind of here. When you draw back and you see the level of investment from you versus other people, what you get back from a particular situation, you know, versus other people, suddenly nothing seems quite as straightforward and obvious as it was before. You know, it's like the 6 of Swords is a pulling away from conflict, but the way that you would have pulled away from conflict in the past would be to mediate, to smooth things over, to make everything, you know, nice and tidy. But we've got the 5 of Swords appearing underneath there, and it's like the realization that this is your default, and sometimes it is important to fight. Sometimes it's important to stand up for things that you believe in, the things that you think have value. And it represents growth for you to be able to work out what those things are, because it's not about collective harmony anymore. It's about appealing to that other side of you, Libra, which is simply what is right and what is not. Because for a sign that has such a sharp sense of justice, and I am a parent to 2 Libra twins, so like I see this in action every single day. It's amazing how fogged you've allowed your perception of situations to be when it involves you, when it's aimed at you, possibly is the way to see it, when you know you are indeed the fulcrum point in the middle of the seesaw. Like all of this work that's gone on here with the clarity and kind of breaking out of a certain set of mental patterns seems to be repeated over here when you see that the way that you have been thinking about things could likely amount to something akin to self-sabotage at this point. Certainly it's been difficult. Perhaps it's been characterized by, you know, a distinct lack of communication. That's possible too. You know, the 6 of Pentacles is taking on an entirely different flavor because it's taking in all of the seesaw now. It's looking at it in its entirety and saying, do you know what? I'm important. I have an innate value, and I need things to be actually balanced rather than imbalanced. And so in order to do that, I need to recognize where I need to make changes. Now, the way that I'm reading this is it does feel like there's possibly going to be some sort of blow up this month, Libra, and you might well not see it coming. But all of a sudden it's on your doorstep and you find yourself saying things that perhaps you've barely allowed yourself to think. But the true tower here is not this blow up, it's not this fallout, it's not this combative situation. It's actually the revolution in your consciousness and your emotions that happen as a result. Now, I said right at the beginning, I wasn't sure if this tower was being instigated by you. It feels like a bit of a double whammy, to be honest, Libra, because there's the initial state of the Five of Wands. But the tower-like situation here is you choosing not to gloss over it, choosing not to smooth it over, instead choosing to walk away from this. Like I said, it's almost like your mind is catching up. Go Five of Swords, Six of Swords over there. Trying to keep an imbalanced situation balanced is a lot of work, and I think it's been testing you more than you know. And the question is your focal point. You know, if you're trying to keep this tiny little point here between you, keep your perception of that balanced when you know that it's all out of kilter. It's like, to what extent do you want true balance for you? And how far do you have to step back in order to see for everything in its entirety and then make a decision about what you're going to do about this level of imbalance? Like I said, the universe is going to bring you this situation, but you instigate the tower insofar as how you choose to deal with it. And it feels to me like it's going to be radically different to the way that you've dealt with anything before. Changed behaviour is often how I see this card. So it feels like it's a month of up and down, ups and downs rather, because there is the joy in finding what is precious to you, but the down is you are going to be walking away from situations that perhaps you thought had a great deal more longevity in them than it's seeming that they are. But you're making some really informed emotional decisions here. And that discernment for which you are famed actually seems to be applying to you now, right? What you will accept and what you won't, and all that sort of thing. So I guess bittersweet would be the way that I would term this. Alright, Libra, I'm going to go over and do the extended now. If this has resonated with you, please do feel free to come and join me for the extended. You can do that on Vimeo, first link, or you can do it over at Circle, which is the second link. Either or is fine. If that's not something that you want to do and we're parting ways here, that's absolutely fine. When you've got energies that are as up and down as we have here, you just need to remember that you are the fulcrum for it, right? So keeping yourself properly balanced should be your priority this month. I've got that Rudyard Kipling poem echoing around my head. What is it? It's something like, if you can meet those two imposters and treat them both the same. There's a line about that echoing around in my head. Anyway, the extremes are the two imposters. Right? The true place is you in the middle, Libra. And I think through a complete destabilization of situations, which is the way that you deal with it, you're actually going to bring a much bigger sense of balance and harmony, and maybe it's even justice, to your situation. And the interesting thing is, I don't think you're going to fully comprehend just how important that is for a few months yet. It's like as this situation plays out, which is really, really interesting. Right, so gonna go. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.